Make sure you've completed the retrieval practice on Microsoft Forms before watching the rest of this video. The link to this is found under the retrieval practice section of this assignment on Microsoft Teams. As you watch through the information in this video, it's important you make notes on anything new you learn. This could be in the form of bullet points or a mind map. This lesson looks at how you can speak like a geographer when talking about Russia. The learning purpose is to be able to use model answers and keywords in order to write 2 extended answers to geographical questions. In order to do this, you're going to define some key terms you've learned in this booklet about Russia. You're going to use a what a good one looks like to complete a developed answer to a geographical question. Geographers use geographical terminology. These are key terms that we only use in geography, such as ecosystem, tributary, conurbation, and many, many more. I am going to describe one of these key terms on the screen. As I'm doing this, you need to guess which one I am describing. So this key term means if a place has met people's needs, we say that it is. Some facts about this key term. It is a type of development. There are 3 types of development you have learned. This is one of them. Some examples of this key term could be access to education, high life expectancy, people are happy in this place, there's access to healthcare. Some non-examples, so these are not part of this key term, would be lots of money, good wages, and clean water. Pause this video now and say out loud what you think this key term is. Well done if you guessed that this key term was social development. Geographers have to be able to give developed answers to geographical questions. We're going to examine now how to give developed answers to 2 geographical questions. We are going to first focus on the question on the screen, which is to explain 3 interactions between biotic and abiotic components of a cold forest biome of Russia using the information below. The first thing we need to do is read through the information of this question. So we're looking at a cold forest biome. If we start reading from the top, owls and eagles use the tall trees to look for their food source. They feed off voles, hares, and other rodents who live on the forest floor. Conifer trees have a cone-like shape that keep them from collecting heavy snow. Many animals live underground in the soil to protect them from cold winters, such as hares. Wildfires are common in the cold forest biome, and plants have adapted to this. Jack pine trees have cones which only open to release their seeds after a fire, dispersing their seeds onto the newly cleared ground. Some plants, such as the purple pitcher tree, have to eat insects in order to make up for the nutrients lacking in the soil. The soil is poor, which means many plants do not grow on the forest floor as a result. Only moss can survive in this soil. Trees grow needles instead of leaves to protect them from being damaged by cold temperatures in the winter. And finally, in this biome, needles from conifer trees fall on the forest floor. They break down and produce highly acidic soil. We can also explore what this question actually is asking us to do. So, the word explain means to give detail on how or why. So in this case, we're going to give detail on the 3 interactions. The term interaction means links. So we're looking at 3 links between biotic and abiotic components. Biotic, if you remember, means living. Abiotic means non-living. So essentially this question is asking you to give detail on the link between one living and one non-living part of the cold forest biome, and you have to do this 3 times, so for 3 different links. For each of the 3 components, you're going to have to do the following. You're going to have to identify the components that are interacting, so the living and the non-living part, and what the link is. You're then going to have to give detail on the interaction on the link. So how are these 2 either using each other, or how is one part using the other? So if we have a look at an example So this is a paragraph I have wrote for the first interaction I am going to use. So first of all, in green, I have identified what the interaction is. So there is an interaction between conifer trees, which are a biotic component, and snow, which is an abiotic component. I then in purple gave some information using the mind map in purple. So the interaction is that conifer trees have learnt to survive being covered in snow, as they have developed a cone-like shape that keeps them from collecting heavy snow. So I got this information from this part of the mind map here. We can now have a look at what we're going to put for the second interaction. So there is an interaction between conifer trees, which are a biotic component, and the soil, which is an abiotic component. We now have to give detail about what this interaction is. I'm going to give you a minute to have a read of the mind map and see if you can work out what details you would give to this interaction. Okay, so if we have a look at the mind map, we're looking for an interaction between conifer trees and the soil. So we can have a look at this part of the mind map here. So we could write that the interaction is that conifer trees grow needles. These fall to the forest floor. They break down and they help produce the highly acidic soil found in the cold forest biome. For your student activity, you are going to write a paragraph to finish this answer off. So you're going to have to give one last interaction between a living and non-living part of this biome and explain to me what this interaction is. Okay, the second question we're going to look and how to write a developed answer to is this one on the screen. And the question is, using the information provided, explain why Ingushetia is not socially developed. Use connectives to develop your answer. So before we are going to read this information, we're just going to have a look what we think this question is asking us to do. So if we go through, the first word we can have a look at is the word explain. And we already know explain gives detail on how or why something is. We've got Ingushetia as our example, and we can then look at what the term socially developed is. So there are three types of development. We have to be very careful on which one we are discussing. So socially developed, we are looking at any information that explains why Ingushetia is not meeting people's needs. So these needs could be education, healthcare, happiness, housing. And we've got to be very careful not to discuss things like money, jobs, the natural environment. The last thing we can have a look at on this question is the term connectives. So connectives are terms we use to connect our ideas. These include the words because, as a result, this means that, this is shown by, just as a few examples. So if we go back to this question, let's have a look at some of the information. So as we go through, we can have a look what information falls under social development. So in Ingushetia, 4 doctors per 1,000 people are found there. So this is social development. And it shows that Ingushetia is not meeting the social development, as that's a very low number of doctors for people. 35% of people live in poverty, so that's not having enough money for basic needs. We would put this statement under economic development, as it is more to do with the economy and money. Air quality is good to moderate. This is environmental development. 1 in 4 homes have no sanitation. So sanitation are toilets, running water, bath, showers, anything to do with hygiene. This is another factor that explains why Ingushetia is not socially developed. So it's about housing. So it is to do with our question. It is a proof that Ingushetia is not socially developed. 99% can read or write. So that's to do with the education. So it's social development. There have been protests about how Ingushetia is run by people unhappy with their living conditions. The Russian government sent in constant police and army presence to stop this. The police and army are violent to those living in Ingushetia. So this is also proof that Ingushetia is not socially developed. People are not happy and they are not living in peace. People live on average to the age of 80 years old. So this would tell us a bit about their needs being met. So again, social development. 1 in 10 people are unemployed, to do with jobs, so this is economic development. The Second Chechen War happened in nearby Chechnya between 1999 and 2009. Many refugees fled to Ingushetia and are now homeless. So this would fall under social development also, as it's to do with peace in the area. The average income is £234 per person per year, so that's economic development. And green space occupies 40% of the capital, Magas. That is environmental development. So when we look at how to answer, with a question like this, it is best to use 3 developed points when we are explaining. So if we give 3 developed points, we want 3 reasons why Ingushetia is not socially developed. For each reason, I would be expecting you to identify the reason why it is not socially developed. So it might be that it doesn't have good healthcare. I want you to give me detail from the information provided. So you can use a quote from the actual information that we just read through. And then I want you to develop the reason using connectives. So saying because or this means that. Why does that mean people's needs aren't being met? So we can have a look at an example of this. And I wrote a full developed reason for why Ingushetia is not socially developed. So first of all, I stated the reason in blue. Ingushetia is not socially developed as the area does not provide housing for all. So that's the reason why it's not socially developed, why people's needs aren't being met. The green is the evidence from these boxes, from the information. The information shows that many refugees who fled the Second Chechen War to live in Ingushetia are homeless. So this comes from this section here. And then in purple you used some connectives like this means that, and as a result, to explain, well, why is that meaning that people's needs aren't going to be met? So this means that they are more likely to be exposed to bad weather and toxins by living on the streets. As a result, these people may be more likely to be ill and even die. Okay, what we're going to look at now is an example of that we are going to do together. So, in blue I've stated the reason. Ingushetia is not socially developed as there isn't good access to healthcare. I'm going to give you a few minutes to have a read of the information again. I want to know in green, I want you to think about what is the evidence from these boxes that there isn't good access to healthcare. And in purple, I want you to think, well, what would this mean? Why would this mean that people's needs are not being met? What could happen as a result? Okay, you have about a minute to do this. Okay, so for the information shows that we can look at the information and we are looking at this box here, that there is only a few doctors for the people. So I can write that there are a few doctors for the people living here, and I can actually quote how many doctors it is, so 4 doctors per 1,000 people. And then I've got to think about, well, what will this actually mean? So this means that people are less likely to see a doctor, are ill. This could lead to death in extreme cases. But illness could also lead to people not being able to work, therefore not being able to afford their basic needs, such as food or rent. When it comes to the student activity, you are going to write one more paragraph looking at another reason why English Yeti is not socially developed from the information. Okay, so the last thing you are going to do now is to exit this video, and you are going to complete the Word document found under the output section of this assignment, and this is called Student Activity Speak Like a Geographer Practice.